you guys excited to see manatees and alligators?
Alice, come over here. That's better. Well,
We're gonna look for
yeah,
them.
but if you stay seated on my lap, I think you'll have a
We're
better.
off to see the lizard.
Woo! Yay! Alligators.
You see, 500 years ago, when the first Spanish explorers came to this part of Florida, they were very impressed with our American alligator. And their accounts and their journals and letters back to Spain are full of references to the lizard. That's what they called it, the lizard. You see, in Spanish, one of the words for lizard is lagarto. And if you want to say the lizard in Spanish, you say el lagarto. And if you say el lagarto fast enough, you say alligator. Because that's all it is. It's a Spanish phrase that means the lizard. So we're off to see the lizard.
Yay! I'm sure he'll point it
The
out.
wonderful lizard of Wakulla.
If we see it, Alice will tell you, okay?
I see a duck.
Now over on our right here, I see a white bird with a long, curved orange bill. That's a white ibis. White ibis uses that long, curved orange bill to dig in the weeds and rack there. It's looking for snails, shrimp, crabs, other crustaceans. There's some little gray and brown birds there next to it. Have a bright candy corn colored bill there. Those are common moorhens. Around here we call them swamp chickens. On our left at about 9 o'clock out in the middle of the river is an anhinga. That black bird spreading its wings in the sun there is called an anhinga. And that bird that just popped up in the river there is a cormorant. Now that cormorant and the anhinga are very similar. They like to swim underwater and catch their food. That's what the cormorant is doing. But because the water makes their wings too wet to fly, both birds have to rest in the sun and spread their wings to dry like that. Now to the left I see a snag covered with turtles. We call that a shell station. And over on our right I see a great blue heron. Now the great blue heron is the largest bird that we will see on this trip. Great blue herons like to eat frogs. They spend a great deal of their day just like that, stalking in the weeds in the shallow water looking for frogs. Now coming up on our right, there's an old tree that's fallen down into the river. We call that a strainer because it strains the river. It catches all kinds of debris that comes down from above. And quite often there's some animals hanging out over there on that rack. I see some little yellow-bellied slider turtles up there on some logs. And I see one lonely cardinal flower, that bright scarlet flower that's called cardinal flower.
They're so cute.
Sliders out there.
Oh, they are cute. They're so cute. They blend in with the log. Yeah, there's another one of those little white birdies.
Yeah.
I like the long red orange beak.
I like the ones with the candy corn color.
Yeah,
There's some little turtles on this log
Oh, there's two.
right here. There's another one, little one right there.
so a teeny turtle right there on that little log.
It's so
Back about
cute.
80 years ago, back in the 1930s, a gentleman came to Florida named Ed Ball. And Mr. Ball came to Wakulla Springs and he saw the Wakulla River and he saw Wakulla Springs and he realized that Wakulla Springs was a national treasure that needed to be preserved. So he bought it. He was that rich. Mr. Ball was a millionaire. Now downstream of us on the right hand side I see some ducks. Those are wood ducks. They're probably not going to let us get real close.
Oh,
There's another one of those ibis birds. The white one. Right there.
colored ducks there with the white crest on their heads, those are wood ducks.
Aww.
I don't see him either.
They're way up ahead.
Mr. Ed Ball bought the Wakulla River, the first 3.5 miles of it, and Wakulla Springs, and turned it into a nature preserve. He went downstream from this point about 3 miles, and he built a fence across the river. There's a young alligator to our left here on the bank.
Alligator.
First alligator at the trip there.
Where is he?
Don't need the lads.
On the bank.
I don't see him.
He's right behind the
ranch. See him there?
Oh, that's really hard to see.
Oh,
He's right there.
We'll see more of them, don't worry. We'll get close to some big ones, hopefully.
He was hard to see him like
Ooh.
Yeah, I just called it and said we'll see some more.
That fence that Mr. Ball built across the river turned this into a nature preserve. And for the last 80 years, the only boats that have run on this river are these boats right here. The only people who get to float down this river are you folks. So this is one of the wildest and most pristine parts of Florida. See some of those common moorhens on our left. And out in the middle of the river, I see some little gray birds. Those are called pied-billed grebes. You guys look carefully out there in the middle of the river. You're probably going to see some alligators with just their heads sticking up above the water, floating along. There's a big scrawny cooter hanging out on a snag right there.
Whoa, that's a huge one.
One of those swamp chickens and another white ibis there to our left. The white ibis is called the hurricane bird. It's very sensitive to changes in barometric pressure. And when a big storm approaches, all of the ibis will fly somewhere else to avoid the storm. So down in South Florida, they say when the ibis disappear, hurricanes come. On our left is a double-crested cormorant, and there goes a great blue heron flying across in front of us.
It's blue hair like the new.
That is the biggest bird we'll see on the river
That's
today.
big.
And we'll see him again.
Oh. There's so many birds. Ooh, there's another.
Out there in the middle of the river, you'll see a lot of these trees growing out of the river. Those are bald cypress trees. Now, bald cypress trees will grow almost anywhere. They'll grow on a mountainside. They'll grow someplace dry. They'll grow someplace warm. And they'll grow someplace cold. But the only time that they make these neat cypress knees that grow upwards like that, cypress knees are the roots that grow upwards, is when they grow in water like this. And you'll see a pretty lavender flower clustered all around the cypress knees. That's river aster or swamp aster. Now that far bank over there gets all the sunshine this time of day, so that's going to be where most of the wildlife is. But there's going to be a lot of wildlife in the river itself.
Oh, there's another turtle.
There's another turtle right there. Oh, two.
If you guys look down into the water, you may see us go right over an alligator or a manatee or a school of fish. Water quality is very good today. We can see about 25 feet.
That's how deep it is. Wow.
No, the depth here is only about 6 feet. So out here we've got excellent visibility. Now when we get to the spring itself, the visibility is quickly going to deteriorate. You're going to see how poor the visibility is. Back in the good old days, we could see 120 feet down to the bottom of the spring. Nowadays, we don't see much more than about 25 feet.
Why is that?
I'll talk about that when we get to the other end of the river. Just bear with me. There's a male Anhinga spreading his wings there. The drier his wings get, the more distinct those silver patterns become.
They're pretty.
Wow, they're really pretty.
And there's some more of those pied-billed grebes out in the middle of the river.
Didn't work though. No.
The grebe is actually more closely related to the penguin than it is to ducks. It looks like a duck, but it's actually a cousin of the penguin.
Yeah, see it? Alligator over there on the left.
Alligator, yeah, there.
Oh yeah, that far bank over there is going to have a lot of gators on it because that's where the sunshine is. But don't worry, we're going to get real close to those gators.
He says we're gonna go around and get on that side, and then we'll see it. So that means when we move around, we'll look out this way, and we should be able to see it.
Larry's in here. He would be telling me, take a look at the boy.
What the boy?
The boy.
Okay. Yeah, he was always on I guess.
Coming up on the right-hand side of the river is the only man-made structure you will see on this part of the tour. This goes back to the days of Mr. Ed Ball. This is the famous Wakulla Springs roller coaster. No, actually it's our marine railway. Now we use that marine railway to pull these boats out of the water. That's what that trolley is for. The joke is that when the boats are ready to go back in the water, we just cut them loose, let them go. That's the roller coaster ride. Now, as I said, back in the 1930s, Mr. Ed Ball came here. Mr. Ball was very wealthy. His sister was named Jessie Ball. That was her maiden name. But her married name was Jessie Ball DuPont. You see, she married Alfred I. DuPont of the DuPont fortune. Mr. DuPont made Jessie Ball DuPont's brother, Ed Ball, his business manager, which was a smart move for Mr. DuPont because Mr. Ball increased the DuPont fortune immensely during his time. As I said, Mr. Ball purchased the whole river here, realizing it was a national treasure. And about 3 miles below the springs, he built a fence across the river. Now, I grew up on this river about 3 miles from here, and I hated that fence when I was a kid because it kept me off this part of the river. But that fence was a good thing, and it's still there, and it still is a good thing because it keeps this river absolutely pristine. As I said, no one comes down this river except us and these boats. So in just a minute, I'm going to turn this boat around and we're going to head back upstream. When we do, I will invite you all to look downstream and take a look at the real Florida. Now over on our right, there's a double-crested cormorant. And there's also another one over here on our left, so you get a good view from either side of the boat.
You're gonna get somewhere on one.
Also on our right, if you look back up into the woods, you'll see that there's a pretty meadow back up there on a slope. That's kind of unusual for these floodplain rivers in this part of Florida, to have a nice meadow and a high bank like that. It looks like a nice place to camp. Well, our archaeologists tell us it's a very nice place to camp. They say the Native Americans have been camping there for over 2,000 years, and that some of the original Spanish explorers of Florida camped in that meadow over there. They've done archaeology and found Spanish artifacts.
That's very cool.
If you live in Florida, you might recognize this plant growing out of the water over here on the right, that tall grass-like plant. That's called sawgrass. Sawgrass has a sharp edge that will cut you like a knife. Now here's the thing, it's not a grass. It's actually a much more ancient plant. It's a member of the sedge family, so I guess we should call it, wait for it, sausage. I got a million of them. Over on the right, there's a pretty little cove, and leading up from that cove is a nice path. And if you were an animal up there in that meadow, you might think that that path was a good way to get down to the water for a drink. But that would be a mistake. Because that path is actually an alligator drag. It was made by an alligator, and there's probably an alligator lurking somewhere close by waiting for an unwary animal to walk down to the water for a drink. That's how alligators hunt. They are ambush hunters. They spend most of their time lying in wait for their prey. Alligators spend up to 10 hours a day just lying in the sun, soaking up the solar rays. Remember, alligators are cold-blooded. They're solar powered. But in the evening is when alligators become active. As the sun starts to sink in the west, the alligators know that that's the last of the sunshine for the day. They're going to have to use their reserves of energy that they've stored up during the day to get out in the last rays of the sun and hunt. That's the only time of the day alligators hunt, is right at dusk. And the alligators will cruise along the banks of the river looking for an unsuspecting bird, or perhaps a raccoon, or a turtle, or a snake. Alligators can eat anything smaller than themselves. During the summertime, our alligators eat about once a week. In the wintertime, when their metabolism is slower because they're cold, they will eat about once a month. People ask me, how do you let people swim here in the swimming area with all these alligators? Well, alligators don't like us. They don't like the swimming, the splashing, the screaming, and the carrying on that happens. So they stay away from our swimming area. Young alligator on our right.
There's an alligator right there.
But
Yeah, that gray head.
just as yet, that's all you'll see. But in the evening, the alligators come out to hunt. They cruise along the edge of the water looking for an unsuspecting animal. And this is why we close the swimming area at Wakulla Springs at dark. That's when the alligators become a problem. So if you want to go swimming here, feel free to during the daytime. Manatee on our left, a couple of manatee to the left here. Nothing back behind us. There's one right over there at about 4 o'clock, or probably about 7 o'clock, and one a little bit further back. Now, folks downstream of us, we should see some manatee ahead of us. So watch down into the water as we approach this corner up here. I'm going to turn left in a minute. And when we go around the corner, there's probably going to be some manatee hanging out in a warm pool down here.
I don't care to see him. Oh, I want to see some.
Now, as I said, I'm going to turn this boat around and we're going to go back upstream. These boats don't run past this point. There's not enough water from here on down. Look at those huge spawny cooters over there to our left on that log, folks. You see how big those turtles are? Okay, there's some manatee directly in front of us. I saw one just sound. We're going to go right over them. But if you'd like, see them up there right in front of us? If you'd like to look downstream for just a second, as I said, nobody goes past here except once a year. Our biologist goes down in a canoe or kayak. There's a manatee to our left. The youngster over there to the left, and then there's a couple of adults directly in front of us. We're going to go right over them, folks. Now these boats have prop guards that protect the manatee as long as I'm going forward. I cannot back up, and I do not maneuver around manatee anyway. Watch carefully over the side of the boat, guys.
Are there alligators?
I think it's on the other side.
Holy sea cow.
There's some fish.
As I said, I don't back up around them. Manatees are mammals. They have to surface to breathe every 4 to 7 minutes. If you look down into this cove on our left, you might see some spotted garfish just hanging out in there. Okay, folks, we're about to head back upstream now, and unfortunately, the electric motors will not push this boat upstream. So I'm going to have to switch over to my gasoline motor. That bird that just flew across and landed over there is a cattle egret. White bird with bright yellow
Stand
feet.
right here. Stand right there. And that way, if you see something, you might be able to see it better.
Now, if I could attract your attention to the left over here, this channel is a nursery channel for alligators. And there are several alligator nests in here and several mama alligators. This clump of trees coming up on the left here, about 11 o'clock, has an alligator nest in the base of the clump. If you look into those trees, you'll see a big mound of leaves and dirt. The mother alligator piled those on top of her eggs. The leaves break down as compost, and the heat of the composting incubates her eggs. Now that nest popped about 2 months ago. There are baby alligators all around us. Some little yellow-bellied sliders and some musk turtles over here on the right.
Oh, I see no alligators.
Turtles
So
there.
if there are baby alligators,
Folks, I ask you guys not to change your seats, okay? When you shift across the boat like that, it changes the trim.
are there alligators on the side?
I see some mullet jumping ahead of us. Mullet are the flying fish of the Wakulla River.
The alligators are going to look black, Alice.
Can't see. All I see is
Just
the water.
look at the banks where the water meets the bank. They'll be perched up on there.
people ask me,
Okay,
how do you
Alice, he's in the
tell a
water,
male
and then
alligator from a
he looks
female
scaly.
alligator?
He's right there. See that black thing?
Well,
That's
here's
it.
how I do it. If an alligator is within 50 feet of an alligator nest, it's a girl. That alligator is right next to an alligator nest, it's a girl. Female alligators will not let male alligators get anywhere near their nests or their babies.
Probably 'cause they eat 'em.
The reason for this is male alligators are cannibals and eat babies.
The
So
males
the mama
eat the
alligator will
babies.
actually look after her babies
Sad.
for 3 years after they're born.
Wow.
This channel right here has several alligator nests on it and several female alligators. So if I see a big adult alligator in here, I'm pretty sure it's a
There's
lady.
one. There's one.
And there we go. There's another lady alligator. Now there may be some of her babies, like there's a youngster back there on a stump. That's probably one of hers.
Oh, there's two.
But look carefully around you. On both banks, we'll see some baby alligators. on a log. But if you look back here along the bank, you may see some more logs with alligators resting on them. There's a youngster there and another one over there.
I guess, so
Yeah, it's on the top of the log.
Treehouse, but they're on the log.
It looks like the log.
Alligators
Yeah, it
spend a lot
blends
of
into the
time
log.
practicing looking like logs. It is an important alligator skill. And these young gators, that's what they're doing right now. They're practicing looking like a
on that
log.
log right there.
See that little fella right there?
Yeah. That's an alligator.
Now the thing is, his mama is someplace close by. Always. If you see baby alligators, there's going to be a mama alligator right there.
Oh yeah, right there.
Oh, I see it.
The mama is always close by, keeping an eye on the babies. Now, if a male alligator should come in here, she will chase him off, and she will do so fiercely and aggressively. Now, folks, I see lots of chewed up eelgrass coming downstream with the current. Chewed up eelgrass drifting with the current tells me that there are manatee in front of us. So those of you up in the bow, keep your eyes peeled for manatee. They're up there in front of us somewhere.
Yeah, maybe.
Good eyes.
I can see the fish in the water too.
Now on the right up here,
What's the right?
I see an anhinga sunning on a star. That's a female anhinga. And the reason I know it's a lady is her neck is that lovely tawny blonde color. The male is black. The female has that
pretty.
lovely blonde neck. And there's another one of those white alphas. Manatee to the left. About 9 o'clock.
We need to stay on this side.
Now the manatee eat the eelgrass, this long, sinuous green grass that you see glowing beneath us. That's their principal food. Now over here on the right is an alligator.
Do you see it, honey?
Look at those birds in the tree.
I don't see the alligator.
It's right up there.
Oh, I see it now.
Those two ibises don't look terribly concerned about this alligator, do they? There's a reason for that, folks. Birds are really dumb. It's true. People say to me, what do these alligators eat? Birds. Lots of birds. So when you see these birds wandering around out here really close to an alligator, and you think, boy, is that bird going to get eaten? Yes, probably. Manatee on the left.
I guess that explains why
Look out
alligators
there on
taste
the
like chicken.
sandbar, and you see a couple of them coming down. That's a mother and calf, folks. Mama and calf, right there to our left.
Oh,
Now, on a mama manatee, the mammary gland is underneath. It's in her armpit. And you'll see the calves will nestle up against their side so they can nurse right there.
There's
in
another
her
gator right
armpit.
there.
Alligator on
Look
the
at that
right.
big alligator.
We got another alligator on the right.
There's two of them. There's another
Now,
one over
folks,
here.
this is a big alligator. This is a 9 to 10 foot gator. This gator probably weighs 600 pounds. You can see how fat it is.
Oh, he's big.
Oh, that is big.
Another thing you'll notice about these alligators is they are black. They are not green like cartoon alligators or like the mascot of a certain university. That's because alligators are solar powered. That black color helps them soak up the rays of the sun during the day.
There's one in the water. There's one swimming over here. Yeah, an alligator just went right behind this tree. Oh yeah, I see his tail.
I don't even see him.
it's underneath this right here.
Oh,
Yep, he's right underneath there.
He swam under.
Now the gator's probably hiding under that mat of grass. He's hiding under there, hoping a bird will walk out on the grass. And that bird will be lunch. If you are standing up, please grab something. I have to put the boat in reverse for a minute. Over on our right is that great blue heron we saw earlier.
Yeah, it's the heron.
It's white.
No, those are the eyes. The heron is the gray thing. It kind of blends in with the stumps.
The great blue is the biggest wading bird on the river.
He looks kind of like
That bird right there has a wingspan of about 5 feet. Even the bald eagles that come here in the wintertime are not as big as the great blue heron.
That's what I just got.
Now there's a manatee on our left, and there's an alligator on our right. Now this is another big gator, folks. If you've been up to the lodge, you've seen the taxidermied alligator there, Old Joe. Old Joe was about 10.5 feet long, weighed about 400 pounds. This is one of Old Joe's descendants. He's almost as big as Old Joe now. That's a 10-foot gator, folks.
Here's another one.
Oh, right there. Look, you see his face.
Another youngster right there hanging out in the rack.
That'll be a good picture.
Now this shore over here is the
Yeah.
side of the river that gets the most sunshine. The best spots to sun are going to be dominated by the biggest gators. That's why we're seeing big alligators over here.
Come
If
over
a
here,
little
Alice.
alligator finds himself a nice spot to catch some sunshine, and a big gator comes along,
There's
the
one.
little gator better move.
You see him, Alice?
There's the alligator on our right.
Yeah, his back's all muddy.
I don't see him. Yeah, I saw him, but I don't see him.
I almost saw that one.
I know. That log looks like an alligator.
To the
Yeah.
left. That's another mother and calf. There's several more out there. I see a couple.
Here's another alligator.
Another gator to our right. You can really see how fat these alligators are. These are well-fed alligators. If you're an alligator living up here on the Wakulla,
Oh, I see
you are
one.
living in some tall cotton. folks.
Wow.
This is the place to be a gator.
Holy smokes.
That's another 9-foot gator. As I said, the big gators will dominate the best spots to sun.
Alligator lunch.
Cattle eater right there to our right.
I kind of want to see when this grass is not to see if there's something without you.
Manatee to our left. Quite a few of them out there.
And another alligator.
Oh, I see it too.
Alligator on our right. How many alligators do you guys think we've seen this trip?
50.
I've counted about 30. Wow. That's not bad. I counted 64 last week.
Oh, wow.
Good place to swim.
Oh, yeah. Another white ibis on our right. Now this channel is another one of those channels that Mama Alligator likes because it's confined and she can protect her babies better. So there are a number of mamas in here as well as a lot of babies. You'll see some before we get to the end of this channel. But the other thing about this channel is that it requires a little imagination on the part of the crew. I would like for you all to imagine that this is the Rufiji River Delta of Tanzania, or perhaps the headwaters of the Amazon. It's not too much of a stretch. You see, back in the 1950s, Hollywood came to Wakulla Springs. The movie companies came here to film jungle movies. They thought this looked a lot like Africa. Well, people were a lot less sophisticated in the 1940s. We've all seen endless hours of the Discovery Channel, the Science Channel, the History Channel. We know what Africa
Oh, look at that alligator.
But back in the 1940s, this was probably a very exotic destination. And in black and white, who knows? Amongst the movies filmed here were Tarzan's New York Adventure and Tarzan's Secret Treasure. Now these were those famous Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan movies. Not everybody on this boat has seen one of those Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan movies. But I guarantee you one thing, we all know that famous, iconic, yodeling Tarzan cry. Everybody knows it. Back in the 40s, when the movie companies came here, the star of the Tarzan movies was Johnny Weissmuller.
On the bank. Oh, yeah.
A lot of people know that Johnny Weissmuller was an Olympic
Alligator on the bank.
athlete, won 5 gold medals for swimming. But not many people know that Johnny was also a world champion yodeler. It's true. You see, Johnny Weissmuller invented the Tarzan yell that we all know so well. And he did it right here, folks. This is our first movie location. When the movie companies came here in the 40s, they built platforms in the trees on either side of this channel. And they put cameras up in those platforms so that they could film the star of the movie swinging through the jungle. So if you've ever seen one of those Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan movies where he swings from vine to vine, this is where he did it. Yodeling that famous Tarzan shout. Now one of the advantages of filming here at Wakulla Springs was the luxurious accommodations at the Wakulla Springs Lodge. And they tell me that Johnny Weissmuller had his own suite at the lodge when he filmed here. And every morning he would throw open the windows to his suite and give that Tarzan yell to let everybody know he was ready for breakfast. Tarzan the Ape Man was not the only strange creature here at Wakulla Springs. That eerie-looking pool directly in front of us is the home of the creature from the Black Lagoon. Iconic 1954 science fiction horror movie is now considered a high camp comedy. But it was actually a groundbreaking movie in its day, and it's not bad. You should watch it. Most of it was shot on a soundstage in Hollywood. But they came to Wakulla Springs for the principal underwater photography. But when they got here, they had a problem. You see, the star of the movie, who had been portraying the creature on the soundstage, when he got to Wakulla Springs, he saw the water here, and he saw the alligators here, and he realized he was going to have to get in the water wearing a 60-pound foam rubber suit. He got cold feet and said no. Fortunately for the movie company, there was a young man that worked here at Wakulla Springs. His name was Rico Browning. Rico was one of our lifeguards. He was also a champion swimmer from the Florida State University swim team. He said, I'll do it. So he donned the creature suit and became the creature. He did such a good job, he was asked to reprise his role in 2 creature sequels. Well, that launched his career. From there on, Rico Browning went on to become a famous Hollywood stuntman. We've got some black vultures over here, folks. Not everybody's favorite bird, but that's our cleanup crew here in Florida. If we didn't have vultures, Florida would be a very smelly place to live. I see a baby alligator directly in front of us.
I bet they're all friends.
And over on the right-hand bank over here, we're going to see some more babies. You guys look up on this bank.
Oh yeah,
You'll
I see
some
one
babies
right in front of us.
practicing their stump and log skills. Come on, guys, don't disappoint me. You got to be in there. There's a little fellow right there. He's almost invisible.
Oh, I see an
We
alligator
may have some
swimming.
more.
Oh, yeah, there's one swimming.
Of course, we got that antenna there. Yep, there's some babies right back in there behind the antenna.
Yep, there they are.
You guys look in there and see some little baby alligators?
Probably 5 or 6 back there.
There's about 4 of them, 5 of them back there.
Oh, I see. It's like a black hole.
I'll have to take a picture and find
If we
it.
see babies, we know Mama's not far away.
Mama must be hanging out.
Now, Wakulla Springs has great wildlife, but we also have other cool stuff. Like we have really cool geology here. You may not realize it, but hundreds of feet beneath us, there is an immense system of subterranean caves full of water. It's called the Florida Aquifer system,
There's some more back there.
and it's where all this water comes from.
2 little alligators.
Alligators on the bank, babies over there on the right.
Yeah.
Watch that right-hand bank, you may see some more.
Who's back there, donuts? Yum, yum, yum.
There's one swimming.
There's a baby right there.
Yeah, is that a baby? Oh, yeah, it is.
And there's a squirrel hanging out in the tree over here to our right. Now see him? A gray squirrel.
Yeah, squirrel. Squirrel. Look at the squirrel.
That is cool.
But there's another neat thing going on this channel. Directly in front of us is a T intersection in the river. There's a channel coming from the left from Wakulla Springs, and there's a channel coming from the right from Sally Ward Spring. Now the really neat thing here is the difference in the water. The water coming out of Sally Ward Spring on the right is blue and clear. The water coming from the left from Wakulla Spring is kind of olive color. If you look over here to the right, you can see the 2 waters mixing. The green water from Wakulla Springs meets the blue water from Sally Ward. Now that beautiful optically clear blue water is what drew the movie companies here to Wakulla Springs. Sally Ward Spring is still clear because it draws from just one deep aquifer. But Wakulla Spring is fed by several aquifers, a couple of which are quite shallow. And those shallow aquifers receive a lot of runoff water from the communities around us. That runoff is full of nutrients, full of fertilizers, yards, gardens, and farms. That fertilizer causes algae blooms, and those algae blooms are what have turned the spring into baby alligator on her back. Let's back up and let you see that. We got a mama alligator hanging out back here. She's over on the right-hand bank, and if you'll notice, she has 2 of her babies on her back. Now these are freshly born, they're only a couple weeks old. They're very vulnerable. That's why she protects them so closely.
I saw one.
As I said, she will look after those babies for up to 3 years after they're born.
They're so teeny.
I know, it's hard to see them. They're sitting on their tail. That's so cool. Man, that's just like the little figurines you can buy. I
This
know.
baby's cute. Remember, they grow up to be 500-pound carnivorous lizards. Now we're about to head out over the main spring bore. The spring itself is a giant hole that's shaped like a big tornado funnel. It swirls around and around and around and disappears under the ground into a big cave, 120 feet beneath the diving tower. Baby alligator on the right.
It's mom. Let's go diving. Mommy, where's
Did they bother the manatees, the alligators?
Alright folks, we're in about 6 feet of water. And we're about to head out over this edge of the spring bowl. The boat is in about 20 feet of water. About 40 feet of water. About 60 feet of water. And about 80 feet of water. Now, if you look off the right-hand side of the boat, you can see visibility is good till about 25 feet, and it gets murky. In the good old days, we could look straight down. Right now, directly beneath us, we would see the bones of dinosaurs. Well, maybe not dinosaurs, folks. How about Pleistocene era, Ice Age era mammals? The big mammoths and mastodons and cave bears. You see, back during the last Ice Age, Wakulla Springs was not a spring, it was a sinkhole. Sea levels were much lower. Water levels in the spring were maybe 40 to 60 feet lower than they are right now. And this was a sinkhole. The Indians that lived here during the Ice Age would set fire to the forest and use those forest fires to drive the big animals over the edge of the cliff and into the pit below to kill them. Then they would climb down into the pit, butcher the meat, and leave the bones behind. The bones are still down there beneath us. In the good old days when we ran the glass bottom boats, we could see those bones. If you'd like to see some of those bones today, go up to the R.A. Gray building in Tallahassee, to the Florida Museum of Natural History. There's a complete mastodon there that's been re-articulated. It was excavated from the spring back in the 1950s. Folks, we're in approximately 120 feet of water right now. We are floating on the upwelling from the spring. The boil from the spring is supporting us. 120 feet beneath us, there is a huge cavern that leads back under the lodge to our right up under that hill. And they tell me that underneath the lodge, 350 feet down, there's a cavern big enough to hide a 15-story building in. Now the reason we know this is back in the 1980s, divers lived in habitats in the bottom of this spring for days at a time, so that they could dive and explore the cave system beneath us. That cave system has been explored for up to 40 miles. Can you imagine spelunking underwater at depths of over 200 feet for over 40 miles? That's a little too much for me. But it's an ongoing project. It's still being mapped right now. It's called the Woodville Karst Plain Project. If you'd like to see fresh video from it, just Google Woodville Karst Plain Project and you'll see the most recent video from the dives. If you'd like to see the original dive from the 80s, just Google Wakulla Springs National Geographics. There's an awesome National Geographic special about that exploration of the cave system beneath us.